So today's MLK Day, and it is a day that I take seriously, and it makes me reflect on what it means to me, which I'll say in a minute. MLK is a great man. I know there's a lot going on about, like, well, what really did he say? You see these petty arguments of, like, well, was he Republican or Democrat? What would he think today? And things like that. Like, to me, it's like the idea of Lincoln. The message, the symbol that he stood for is more important than the actual events that happened in his life. For example, I'm not going to go back and say, oh, it turns out maybe wasn't the very most faithful to his wife. Maybe he was kind of an adulterer. That doesn't matter. The symbol of what he stood for, he was a great man. And I think that symbol is impressive. The idea that we should all be judged as individuals, that he fought against bigotry and racism. That's an important thing. And it doesn't matter what your skin color is, you should be able to appreciate that. Now, I will start off by saying the negative that I have to say today, which is I've seen people that I respect putting things up like, well, if you're white, be careful quoting MLK. Why? Like, you're gonna take that stance? It's utterly ridiculous. I'm so tired of this idea. It's just more racial division. How about we just focus on the message of the individual? Judge someone by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Yes, I know he said things that like would lend towards maybe being a socialist society. He said all sorts of things back and forth. But that's the central theme. That's, to me, what MLK Day is about. It's about judging people on their character, not the color of their skin. We had a dark point in history where people were judged by the color of their skin because they happened to be black or brown. And that was a terrible thing. It's still terrible today. It's also terrible to judge anyone by any of these superficial characteristics. Period. So I'm not going to take this video explaining about who I think is playing the identitarian politics game more. All I'll say is you could celebrate MLK and quote him regardless of what your skin color. I think that's perfectly fine. Now, what does MLK Day mean to me? I always think that not obviously that it's about individuality, which is kind of my central theme. That's what this country was founded on, the idea that we should focus on the individual. Yes, it wasn't perfect. Yes, there was terrible things particularly done to African Americans, and yes, thank God we had heroes like MLK to stand up and fight for that. But clearly that's part of the message that really resonates with me. Judge someone by the content of their character. But in specific, when I think of African Americans, I think of two groups that I think exemplify what America is about, that are some of the greatest Americans that have ever existed. The first group is that group that was slaves that were freed and emancipated or fought for their freedom, suffered this abuse in their lifetime, suffered all sorts of atrocities that I can't even begin to imagine, and just said, you give us our freedom. We're not calling for blood. Some of them did, and rightfully so. But you give us our freedom, and we'll prove by the fruits of our labors that we belong in this country, that we're Americans, that we can outdo the racists that sought to keep us down because we're that hardworking. To me, that is unbelievably amazing. That is what America is. That they said, we don't want special treatment. We don't need it. We are as good as you. And there were a lot of slaves. They just wanted land, just to be left alone. Keep the bigots away from us, and we could have a successful society. And I respect those that did that. I think that's fantastic. It is a situation that's such grace, that's such American spirit that I can't even begin to live up to that. If I had 1/10 of that, I would be a far better man than I am now. And we see that kind of in the modern day where you have all these inner city communities that have a lot of African Americans, and it's terrible challenges. Drugs, crime, poor education system, poverty, single parenthood. And if you're in this community, if you're African American, the chances of you making it out without being involved in some kind of criminal element or having terrible things happen to you isn't very high. Yet there are those that do that. There are those that, despite all this, do the right thing. They get educated. They show that they're every bit as capable as anyone of any other race. And those people are better than me. They're better Americans than me. I grew up more privileged than that. And they work their way out of there. They're not looking for special treatment. They're there to show you that they're every bit as capable as everyone else. I would have failed. I know that if I was surrounded by that element, that, I'm lucky. I didn't grow up in a wealthy community. I grew up in poor rural Pennsylvania, but I had two parents that cared. And I still made mistakes, So those people that come out of those communities are real heroes, and they're real Americans, and I think of them on MLK Day too. So, it's a day for celebration, not division, and I think that it's an amazing story. MLK was an amazing person, and we should really reflect on that today. So, all right, if you like and subscribe, and I'll be putting more videos up daily. So have a good one.